Okay, good afternoon, members of the media, wider viewing and listening public of Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome to today's media conference. I have with me here this afternoon Mr. Adam Stewart, who you're all familiar with, the Deputy Chairman of the Sandals Resorts International Group. And we have with us as well the CEO, Mr. Gebhard Rainer. And we have just come out of once again, some negotiations and discussions with respect to potential project, Sandals Beaches project in Tobago going forward. So I'd like to thank you all very much for coming here this afternoon. As the record would reflect, and without fear of contradiction, on every single occasion that the government of Trinidad and Tobago has met with any of the representatives from Sandals, we have informed the public of Trinidad and Tobago. And in fact, I was reflecting before coming in here, I think this might actually be the third or fourth live or media conference that I've done with Adam and other members of the Sandals Group over the past 2.5 years that we've been in discussions. And after each and every one of those media conferences, we've always opened it up to the floor and to the media to ask us whatever questions you so desire. So I'd like to start by saying that in the continued spirit of transparency and accountability, once again, the government and the Sandals Group are presenting ourselves to the media to give the public of Trinidad and Tobago and all of those who are interested an update on where exactly we've reached in our negotiations and our discussions. And at the end, of course, as is usual, we will allow for questions that the media may have, and we will answer them to the best of our ability. So I'd like to start off by saying that this transaction, this conversation with Sandals, contrary to the narrative that is being fed by others out there, is not a secret transaction. We operate with the fullest levels of accountability and transparency. So just to give you some context and background, the Honorable Prime Minister, when he was leader of opposition, in looking and planning ahead for when we became government and how we would be developing Trinidad and in particular Tobago in this instance, had a conversation with the Sandals Group and in particular the chairman, Mr. Stewart. Adam was there as well at the time and invited them to come and take a look at Tobago. When we became government, we followed up on that invitation, invited them to Trinidad and Tobago, and in particular to look at Tobago. They toured the island of Tobago, and they are the ones who came up with, because they have the most successful Caribbean brand. It's actually in the Fortune 500, and it is unarguably, it is without fear of contradiction, the most successful Caribbean bred brand, Sandals Group, and invited them to Tobago. They identified an area that they thought would be a successful area for sandals and beaches, and therein began the discussions that have been taking place for 2.5 years. With projects such as this, there are a lot of issues that need to be worked out. There are a lot of discussions that need to take place before it becomes an eventual project. And we have kept you all abreast of this all along. As we began discussions and looking at conceptual designs and the concept of what can be put on the ground, the government set about acquiring 2 estates in Tobago. On one of these estates that is in the government's possession through an SPV company in Tobago, the Golden Grove Buko Limited in Tobago, there is a spit, a sand spit called No Man's Land. And for the millionth time, I repeat, no part of this project was ever designed to interfere at all with the No Man's Land spit. There is nothing that is going to be built once we have a project on the No Man's Land spit. In fact, a few months ago, both Adam and Gebhard came to Tobago. I met them there and we did a walkthrough of the land, including along that spit, saw it firsthand. And they said that if this project is going to go ahead, what they would actually do is enhance the spit, making it better for for the public and for persons who would visit, etc. For example, putting on the hotel side some public toilets, or near to the hotel boundary public toilets, making sure it was properly upkept, and etc. Because contrary to what people like to suggest, when you walk on the No Man's Land spit, it actually has not been properly maintained, and persons who have used it, you would see that they've left their rubbish behind, etc. These are some of the things that if we get to the project stage, we intend to address to ensure that it is actually enhanced. And the conversations continued. We hired environmental experts. They are part of the team. An application has been put in for a CEC, as you are aware. Before we can proceed with the full CEC, the EMA has written a very normal letter saying we require further information, etc. Prior to that, the government and Sandals on the 10th of October 2017 executed a memorandum of understanding. This memorandum of understanding and the language of the memorandum of understanding, if I can just touch on it to give you all an idea. The parties agree that this memorandum of understanding is not exhaustive. It is not legally binding, but indicates the sincere intent of the parties, that's the government and Sandals, to reach a legally binding heads of agreement that incorporates these terms, etc. So what we did is we executed a memorandum of understanding that set out the intent of the parties and to govern our discussions going forward as we move towards commercial arrangements. As you all have heard the government tell you all over the past few months, we are moving to the stage now of negotiation of commercial contracts, and in particular development agreement, and then the other contracts that would flow from that, a management contract, sale and purchase agreements, and a number of various agreements. But until the parties have settled, agreed, and executed these commercial agreements, there is no definitive project. The MOU governed our discussions and showed that there was an intent on both parties. I would like at this stage to thank the Sandals Group for giving the people of Trinidad and Tobago the time of day, for working along with us and putting their resources behind us. They have done a number of studies, etc. They've looked at it, their conceptual drawings and designs, and for investing at this stage in a potential project in Tobago. And I'm happy to say at this stage, coming out of our discussions a short while ago, and I'll give you all the timetable in a while, we are moving now to the stage of exchange of draft commercial agreements. Now the MOU, it would have been very unusual when you have parties negotiating commercial contracts and agreements and still having discussions as to how you would move forward into a project, to issue the MOU to the public, because the MOU is governing our conversations and discussions going forward. So in the normal course and conduct of business, when sophisticated parties are in the thrust of negotiations and negotiating commercial agreements, it is extremely unusual. I can tell you, in my 20 years of practice as an attorney, I have never seen parties release an MOU prior to the conclusion of commercial agreements actually being agreed and their signatures being put on the dotted lines. One of the other things that had taken place, you all would recall, early o'clock, the Sandals Group actually came and did a presentation in Tobago. We had the THA with us, as well as a number of specially invited guests, again including the media, including those with environmental concerns in Tobago and others, the Tobago Chamber of Commerce, other hoteliers, etc. That is yet another example that I remind you all of, that we have always operated in the with full transparency and putting all of our cards that we can put on the table, because you would appreciate that whilst we in the government continue to negotiate what we think would be the best terms for Trinidad and Tobago with the Sandals Group, we can't be premature in discussing what it is we're negotiating. I'd also like to once again remind you that the type of agreement we're negotiating with Sandals is that the people of Trinidad and Tobago will own, we will construct in accordance with their designs and according to their brand. We will construct the plant in Tobago, and the people of Trinidad and Tobago will own it, similar to the Hyatt model and the Trinidad Hilton model that have worked successfully over the years. I've seen a number of naysayers say that, you know, how could we say those models have been successful? The truth is that they are very successful models. This is what we're adopting with the Sandals Group, and the Sandals Group will manage it. We're negotiating with them for the use of their brand of sandals and beaches, and we're going into that territory with Sandals, and we're now moving towards the negotiation of those commercial terms. So the point why I make that point is any of the concessions and incentives to be granted, for example, on the importation of stuff, etc., will be to the benefit of the owner of the project which is going to be, the owner is going to be the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So the concessions and incentives are not being granted to the Sandals Group as in other jurisdictions that they have. Obviously, there will be discussions with them with respects to taxation because they will have employees on the ground, etc. And these are some of the other conversations that take place. I will again reiterate the government's position that whatever the incentives and the exemptions granted to this project, we are going to consider the granting of similar incentives to those other hotels in Tobago. So it is not going to have any unfair advantage. Some of the great features of this Sandals project for us as a government is Sandals has utilized best-in-class technology over the years in their construction of other projects in other islands and have actually enhanced reefs. They've brought back reefs that are dead. They have dealt with mangroves in the past. The environmental concerns with respect to this project were first and foremost concerns that we discussed. So there is nothing here when you hear one or two persons in Tobago screaming about environmental concerns. Those are obviously in our consideration. The first consultants that we hired were environmental consultants. Sandals have shown us the proof that in other jurisdictions they have actually rebuilt reefs, enhanced reefs, they've utilized technology. What we intend to do with wastewater that currently exists in the area is convert that, turn that around. So the environmental concerns are being addressed. As I said on a previous occasion, one of the loudest voices in this project, against the project on an environmental aspect in Tobago, is actually one of the main flouters of the environmental concerns in Tobago and actually is one of the people who breach and actually affect the environment in a negative way. Put that aside, we are dealing with all of the concerns. We're going to meet with the EMA and work through whatever it is they want us to work through. The EMA request for further information from us, there is nothing unusual. Anyone who has experience in these types of projects will see that there was nothing unusual in what is being requested, and we will work with them. Prior to coming into this meeting, we were discussing with the planners, and we've also been in touch with our environmental advisors, etc., how it is we intend to go forward over the next few months to ensure that we get all of the necessary approvals for this project, etc. At this stage, what I'd like to do is I will be passing it over to Adam or to Gebhard for them to address you all. What I would like to say is at the end of this press conference, we have had discussions between ourselves, and because we're now moving to the commercial side of the agreements and the negotiation of the commercial side of the agreements, whilst we still believe it might be premature in the normal course of things, we have taken a collective decision, that is Sandals and the government, that at this stage we are going to release the memorandum of understanding at the end of this press conference to you, the media, to share with the public of Trinidad and Tobago. And there was never any intention not to release it, but as I said, when you're in the middle of commercial negotiations, you can't release things prematurely. And even though we still believe it may be premature, in the interest of transparency and just getting on with the conversations that we're having, we have agreed between ourselves that neither party has any problem with releasing the MOU. So at the end of this press conference, I will make a number of copies of the MOU available to you all and ask that you all take them away and look at it. There is nothing in there that is of any concern to us whatsoever, and we can answer questions on it going forward in the future. There are a couple of clauses in there, for example, one that talks about the future laws and regulations and administrative measures and how that may affect a project going forward. I remind you all at this stage that the MOU really was an intention by both parties to put all of the cards, all of the wants, all of the desires of each party on the table. The specifics of these things going forward are still in negotiation. We have not concluded any of the terms and conditions. We have not concluded what exemptions, what initiatives, but you will see in the MOU that one of the great features of this project as well is that there's going to be a lot of local content. So Sandals, as is part of their business model, are going to assist us in terms of the agriculture, in terms of educating farmers and providing them with assistance with the best-in-class type of farming techniques, etc., going forward, because their model is to buy as much local content as possible. Also in the construction phase, to use as much local content as possible in terms of local labor, in terms of hiring of personnel once we have a project going forward. Again, and they have stated this in writing at the MOU, and these are the things being negotiated now. They will again look to utilize as much of the local staff as possible. So the point once again is that Tobago, this is a fabulous opportunity for Tobago. There are going to be a lot of opportunities, not only in the farming, in tour operators, taxi drivers, but employment directly at the hotel, etc. I'd like to end, before passing it over to Adam and Gebhard, by saying that there is still a lot of discussion and negotiation to take place. So one of the things I've looked on and seen people presupposing and suggesting as to how many rooms the hotel will have, you will see in the MOU that we put out a figure. But again, those have not been finalized. It may very well turn out that the hotels will be built in stages and phases according to what makes sense at the outset, and leaving room for expansion as we go along. So the number of rooms have not been determined. Where the footprint of the hotel, whilst their conceptual drawings, etc., that has not been determined. And I'd just like to put, and we'll come to it in a little while, there have been some misreports in some of the newspapers and amongst the media utilizing information that is not accurate information. We will also address that in a short while. At this stage, I'd like to thank you all, and I'll pass it over to Adam for him to share a few of his thoughts and views with you.
Thank you, Minister. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me just say it's a great pleasure for us to be back in Trinidad again. As the Minister said, we've repeatedly spoken about the project, the possibilities of the project and what it can bring. At the end of the day, Sandals Resorts International is a hotel chain. We are a part of creating destinations, destination marketing. We're experts in getting airlift to the destination and incremental airlift to increase visitor arrivals. As a hotel chain, our intentions, and clearly we create dreams for our customers. But in order to execute that, there's a lot of moving parts on the ground that have to take place. In conversation today with the Minister, and I want to thank Minister Young in particular and our PM Rowley for the professionalism. Every time we've been to Trinidad and Tobago has been a joyful experience for us. We've been welcomed with open arms, and we've had very progressive and sophisticated discussions about doing something that could only be considered transformational. This project, in its entirety as a potential goes, has the ability to put another 70 or 80,000 visitors a year into Tobago. It has the ability to put in excess of $80 million a year of economic impact, to deliver over 150 to 200 tours a day, to employ permanently 2,000 Tobagonians and Trinidadians on and in the hotel full time, right around through all seasons. We don't close as a hotel chain. This year, 2018, we were just recounting Sandals Resorts International created over 6 billion media impressions. We are represented in continental Europe, Russia, Germany, Italy, France. We are represented in North America, Canada, and most importantly, the United States of America because of its proximity to the Caribbean. The island of Tobago is a huge opportunity. It's a secret in many ways to many visitors from around the world. It just has not had the scale, it has not had the exposure, and in order to make it a world-class tourism destination, it's going to require some element of sophistication. It's going to require some depth of training of our people. It's going to require some advanced systems and development on agriculture and working with manufacturing. In our home country of Jamaica, 98% of all of our consumption of fruits and vegetables are grown by Jamaican farmers in Jamaica. That's twice as many as the next best competitor. So we're not importing or we're not speaking. We really ask everyone to look at the track record. Sandals Resorts International, as a hotel chain, runs the absolute highest environmental standards, bar none. We've won every award that there is to win by virtue of our actions and what we have done. Taking sewage treatment, treating it, turning it into grey water, watering our plants and our gardens, which are botanical on every resort. Every hotel has an environmental health and safety manager, meaning there's a full-time employee or team in every resort that is a custodian of all of our consumption. Everything from water, LPG, to taking care, as the minister said, of the recreation of reef life or whatever the particulars may be. When we first began this project, we did a very early conceptual document. A conceptual document to say this is what something could look like. I say that with the caution to say that it did not take into consideration anything that was on the ground other than an aerial overview of a property, because we had not yet done the EIA, the environmental impact assessment, with which we are working through currently. It was a conceptual document that picked up elements of the success of Sandals over the last 37 years. How we put at Sandals, the elements of it, and our beaches, how we could treat with restaurants, would we do rooms over the water, totally conceptual. It may work, it may not be appropriate. That document is not to be taken as a factual document that says this is what Tobago is going to get. Because in each of the 23 hotels that we have developed across the Caribbean, we've done an EIA, which then goes from concept and works down to actuality and what is in harmony with Mother Nature and what is appropriate for the particular site. I say that to say that when we came here, when we really began the discussions about 2.5 years ago, we did a document, and I'm going to hold up the document. This document was the document that we published. This document is showing conceptually where Sandals could be on this side, where beaches could be. You have no man's land here. You'll notice there is no development taking place on no man's land. We couldn't help but notice that a particular news media published this document. This document has never been seen by an executive of Sandals Resorts. It has never been seen by the government of Trinidad and Tobago. This document was recreated by someone that clearly shows a restaurant in the water, which we never proposed, over the water suites on no man's land, which we never proposed. Even in our conceptual document, we never proposed it. This document is 100% fictitious and did not come from Sandals Resorts International. What is probably more disturbing is that nobody called us for comment to say, is this your document? So I would say the majority of that work was done in vain, and I have to support Prime Minister Rowley when he says, be careful who you're listening to. So much so that we are very proud to be here today holding hands with the government to say, I've done several interviews directly and with Minister Young, that we're proud to release the MOU. Because you're going to see in the MOU that it speaks specifically to training and development programs. Sandals Resorts International runs the Sandals Corporate University. We work with 15 international universities, from the University of the West Indies to Ryerson to Florida International. We train more people free of cost than any other company in the Western Hemisphere, meaning we are arming people, our citizens of the Caribbean, with the knowledge that they need to progress, to matriculate, to achieve their goals and dreams in their life in every single one of our hotels, and that will happen here in Tobago as well. We buy more locally than any other hotel chain in this hemisphere. Our job is to work with Blue Waters or whomever in all of our consumption inputs in order to keep the money onshore and not offshore. The easy thing to do is to buy it from Miami, but the more sophisticated and the right thing to do is buy locally. The MOU speaks to that. The MOU speaks to our commitment in increasing airlift. You can go destination by destination, from Antigua to Turks and Caicos to the Bahamas, of the impact, and speak to anyone over different governments over decades about the impact of Sandals putting billboards on highways and working with thousands. We train 25,000 travel agents a year, and putting the word Tobago in their mind, bringing them down here. We charter aircraft, 767s and 737s, full of travel agents, and bring them to destinations so they can see it, they can meet the beautiful people down here, they can see the flair of Trinidad and Tobago, they can see the carnival recreated on resort, and they can sell our destination so we can employ people, buy more locally, have retained earnings, and put Tobago on the map. This MOU is actually something that we're quite proud of. It's something that the government and ourselves spent a lot of time working on, and it's a guiding document. It's a non-binding legal document, but a guiding document that sets out the intentions. And I think you're going to see in it the intention of the government and the intention of Sandals Resorts International is holistic. It was designed for a new earning stream for the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And we have to be honest. We are looking at building an incredibly sophisticated resort development. And with that will come certain requests. One of them has been that the airport would be upgraded, which the government had told us that it would be upgraded in and of itself, whether or not the hotel happened or not. It will speak to elements of marketing and the importance of working and making sure that we actually, you know, the concept of build it and they will come has never worked in the Caribbean ever before. They will not come. They'll go to Mexico, and they'll go to Paris, and they'll go to Italy, and they'll go to places that they know. They won't come to Tobago, hence why they're not coming to Tobago in mass numbers today. But most importantly, what we have seen in every island, and probably our neighboring island, Grenada, is a best example, where we have almost quadrupled the airlift since the arrival, is that every hotelier has had more exposure now and since 2013 when Sandals opened than before. If you ask any sensible hotelier on island, they will say that all ships rose with the success of Sandals down there. Competitive tension set in. People started focusing more on benefits to their staff. They started focusing more on training to their staff. Working with the local farmers has progressed and helped everybody. So the hotel industry is not at war with the competitor down the road or in competition. We're in competition with the world. It is in our own best interest that everybody is successful in Tobago. And most importantly, in the hotel business, there are two things that make us successful: getting high rates and having high occupancies. Many people get high rates and have no occupancy, or many people have full hotels and make no money. Sandals Resorts International is the most premium all-inclusive brand on planet Earth. We have no intention of making Tobago a discount wholesale destination. As a matter of fact, we intend on making brand Tobago one of the true exotic islands that we believe it will be. All tides will rise and every hotelier will make more money, as well as every taxi driver, every tour operator, every farmer, and every manufacturer. 80-odd million US of true onshore economic impact into the island of Tobago is going to supercharge the destination of Tobago. And then, of course, where Sandals plants its flags, everyone pays attention. They know we're from the Caribbean. They know we're dynamic in what we do. And others will come knocking. And our intention is that in 10 years from today, Tobago is truly a successful tourism destination, doing everything that we believe it can from a linkages point of view. And I just want to say, Minister, thank you once again, and to the press, thank you for the opportunity. On behalf of Sandals Resorts International, we are progressing nicely, and we are probably most importantly, as is taking place in every investment that Sandals has done, whereby there have been concessions or anything extraordinary necessary to make it a reality. We have asked the government at the end of the negotiation to publish and place in the House those incentives for everyone and anyone to see, because there are no secret deals taking place between the government of Trinidad and Tobago or Sandals Resorts International. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. Members of the media, I'd just like to emphasize one of the important points that Mr. Stewart has just made. And this is more conversation for the public of Trinidad and Tobago. Unfortunately, there remain a very small handful of persons who are noisemakers and national nuisances, etc., who want to provide the public with false information, distorted reality, etc. Do not for a moment let it be missed by you that the media recently ran a 4-part story, and part of that story was getting a so-called environmentalist to identify areas on a drawing saying that this is going to affect the environment, etc. As the Prime Minister has said, as Mr. Stewart has just said, and as I will re-emphasize, be very careful where you get your information from. There are only two real sources of information with respect to this deal, that is Sandals and the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And I ask that you just exercise that extra caution going forward, because what Sandals has just told us, that someone created a fictitious document showing a fictitious, completely false drawing of a proposed project that is in no way condoned or associated by either the government of Trinidad and Tobago or Sandals. This moment must not be missed, because what it shows is the great lengths that couple people in society will go to destroy the potential of something you've just heard Mr. Stewart go at lengths to tell us can be beneficial to the people of Tobago and by extension the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Additionally, it was seen that there was a suggestion that this project would cost $8 billion. I was in Tobago when that article came out. When I woke up that morning and saw it, I was in complete shock. I said, $8 billion? Where has this $8 billion come from? And then when I read the article and I saw that it was the marina in Tobago, the extension of the Tobago, a new terminal facility, and a whole set of sundry other projects being put in and trying to tie and associate that with a Sandals project, again, that is a distortion of reality. As Mr. Stewart has just said, it was always the government's intention to build a new state-of-the-art terminal at the Tobago A&R Robinson Airport going forward, and that is the government's intention to do so. As you all know, the RFPs for that project close in February of next year. The government intends to build a new airport terminal. We are hoping that we would have a Sandals project, and as part of that, in that terminal, there'll be special facilities for anyone who's traveled to Sandals in Jamaica, etc. They have special facilities in the airport for them. But the terminal is not being built for Sandals. It's being built for the people of Tobago, because we want to increase the airlift and better facilities in Tobago. The marina has nothing whatsoever to do with this project. In fact, when I had announced that in Tobago, I was shocked to then see that being tied into the Sandals project. All I ask is that when we report accurately and responsibly, and please be careful about the source of your information, because there are a few people, and they stand up, some of them in Parliament, and make the most amount of noise, but in a vacuous way where they have no facts. At no point in time has the government or Sandals hidden any facts. In part of our transparency, we're here to answer questions and to address any of your concerns. We, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, are very pleased to have been carrying out these conversations and negotiations and discussions with the Sandals Group, and we look forward to being able to come back to you and announce that a deal has been reached. And having said that, it might be the appropriate time to say, coming out of our discussions this afternoon, we expect the exchange of a draft development agreement in the next 24 to 48 hours to come from Sandals. We have then both going to instruct our international lawyers to begin the conversations between themselves, Sandals lawyers and the government of Trinidad and Tobago's lawyers. Our case is White and Case, and Sandals lawyers to have those discussions, conversations. We're looking at having a follow-up meeting to progress our conversation and negotiations somewhere in the week of around the 17th, 19th of December, and then we go into the new year. But we have come up with a time frame as to when we will negotiate and how quickly we can negotiate the commercial terms and conditions of these commercial agreements. Running parallel to that is the application for the EIA, and we've put in for the CEC and these types of things. We'll be working with the EMA in terms of going forward. We've also put in an application to Town and Country Planning, and those things are being progressed as well. So at this stage, at the end of the conference, I'm happy to say that both parties have agreed that in the interest of letting the people of Trinidad and Tobago know what's going on, we will release the MOU. I don't know if Gebhard has anything to add.
No, the only thing that I would like to add is, as Adam said in his opening statement, we are grateful for the opportunity to be in Trinidad and Tobago. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with Minister Young, the Honourable Prime Minister. I've had the pleasure meeting the Prime Minister and touring a little bit more of Tobago and the site itself. We walked the site several times. I want to emphasize one thing that has been said a couple of times now here again. Sandals Resorts International is truly an international company. It's a global company. It very often is referred to as a Caribbean company. Yes, it's a Caribbean-based company. It is, as a matter of fact, it is actually the only super brand that has ever been created in the Caribbean. I'm not Jamaican, I'm not Caribbean, I'm European. I have over 35 years experience in the hospitality industry, and I can tell you that this company is in compliance with procedures, with a business approach, just like many other large international companies. As a matter of fact, we have values that clearly indicate to us, and I can assure you we're not going to breach those values, at least not as long as I am the CEO of this company. And those values have never been breached in the past. We have values that we will not throw overboard for anything. And those values are, because it is a Caribbean-based company, to look after the environment, to be in harmony with the environment, and to ensure that whatever we do, we look after the environment in a way that allows us to think for generations ahead. And there are a number of initiatives that we are leading at the forefront in terms of how we deal with the environmental impact of our business, as well as many other businesses that surround us that we work with. This project is a huge opportunity, not just for Sandals. For us, of course, it is an opportunity because it is our business. But it's a huge opportunity for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And I think Minister Young has been emphasizing this, not just today, but in many previous statements as well. This is a project for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, specifically for the people of Tobago. It is not something that the only benefactor is Sandals, and there is this grey and murky area where a secret deal is being done between the government and Sandals. There is no secret deal, as it has been said. There is no murky area. We're very transparent. We're very open to any questions. We're always available for any questions. As Adam said earlier, it sometimes is unfortunate that when things are being reported on, we are not being asked. We're not being asked for comment. And therefore, it is important as to where you get your information from and the source that you put your trust in terms of what information you are being given. But to repeat again, we're extremely excited and happy to be here. It is a very normal process that we're going through here now. It is very unconventional and unusual, and I say this from my own experience, and I've said this to Minister Young before, so this is not a surprise, to release a document like the MOU in public, but we have no problem with it, as we have stated along. But I want you to understand it is unusual from a business practice to do that, because we are in the middle of negotiations. As Minister Young stated, and we have agreed on this, once the negotiations are completed, it will become knowledge, public knowledge, it will be transparent as to what this deal is all going to be about. We are in full compliance with laws and regulations in every area that we operate in. We're in full compliance with all the environmental requirements in every island and in every coastal area that we operate in. And we will be no different here in Tobago. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just one point in conclusion before we go to questions. I'd like you all to consider the logic of the argument that we're going to do something that would be detrimental to the environment. One of the beauties and attractions of this project is the environment within which the hotel is going to be built. One of the attractions is that whole area in Tobago and the whole environment that surrounds it, the beach, etc. So why would we build something there to ask persons to come there and then destroy that environment? It is the exact opposite, and I think that's one of the messages I want to get out there today. That what we're looking to do is enhance the environment, to make it a competitive project, a competitive hotel, a competitive resort, by having a best in class of the environment. And one of the things Sandals has done successfully is, you see those over the water hotel rooms, my understanding, and way before coming into government, there was one area in the world that had done that successfully, the Maldives. We should be proud that a Caribbean-based brand has replicated that and reproduced that in the Caribbean. And we are looking at the potential of doing that with this project, nowhere near the fictitious document where it's located. And if we do that, the level of attraction of that to an international market, where people no longer have to go to somewhere like the Maldives and they can come to Tobago. As a patriotic people, that is something we fully support. So I give you all the assurance today, and I'm sure I can speak on behalf of Sandals on this instance. It makes sense for the project for us to protect the environment, and more than protect the environment, to enhance the environment, not to destroy it, because that takes away from the whole saleability of the hotel going forward. So at this stage, I'll invite you all to ask any questions you would like to. If you're using mic, and just identify yourself first and then go ahead.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Akash Samaru, CNC3. Minister Young, question to you. The timing of the release of this MOU, is it just for the naysayers? Because I know tomorrow, after Raymond's matter, would have been going to court, asking for these same details. It's kind of coincidental.
I don't know about it being coincidental, etc. As you've heard us say, we're in the middle of negotiations, we're in the middle of commercial discussions taking place. It is very unusual to release it, but after consenting with each other, and today was a planned meeting for us to continue the conversation on the commercial side, we're releasing it. This has nothing to do with Mr. Afro Raymond. You call him a naysayer. I have no opinion on him whatsoever.
No, that was separate, but was it on Sandals' insistence that it's being released? I know
there is no insistence by either side. It is an ongoing conversation that has been taking place between ourselves and Sandals.
All right, have we come to decide how much it will cost and how we'll be financing it?
Again, thank you for that opportunity. Until we've completed the commercial side of the discussions, there is no current costing or costing with any element of certainty. We're still very fluid when that comes to it. One of the other things we discussed is at some stage, once we've completed the agreements, we're going to have a presentation and invite equity investors who may want to invest in the project. You all have heard us say on countless occasions, both the Prime Minister and myself say, we invited 3 of the largest groups in Trinidad and Tobago. 2 of them, that is Guardian Holdings as well as Massey, have indicated in writing that they are interested in investing. We will look at other equity investors when we reach to that stage.
You spoke of timetables, my final question. Now, tell me, when do you expect that we will have the information? Okay, this is what we're going to build. This is how much it's going to cost, and this is how we're going to pay for it.
There are a number of steps. I don't know if you want to answer that.
There is a number of steps that we have to go through. So as Minister Young said, we're in the middle of negotiating the commercial terms. There are a number of different agreements from a commercial perspective that we have to go through. So when you look at a timeline in terms of what is going to be released, this is also impacted by the environmental study that's underway at the moment, because that will guide us as to what and how we can distribute the footprint of the actual resort. So it impacts design, it impacts the engineering aspects of what is being done. To give you an exact timetable at this stage, we can't, because it is dictated by when we will have the base information available that then guides us as to what is done. We do have, of course, indications as to what the expected costs are. That's part of the experience that we have as an operator, naturally. And we can overlay that to different locations. But it would be irresponsible of us to talk about this now, because you can't use those numbers for a public discussion. Once we are ready and have done the actual work that is necessary to do this and have gone through the course of things the way we have explained it now, we will release that information. And once the agreements are being signed, this is part of the information that will be in the agreements as well, it will be made public knowledge.
But Drew Brown, 26 years question to you, sir. You said it was unusual in terms of releasing the MOU. Also, then, why make that unusual move at this stage of the negotiation?
Let me answer that. We don't need any distraction. We are in the stages of the thrust of the commercial arrangements and agreements, and we just found that there was too much distraction by something that is a non-issue for us. When you get the memorandum of understanding, you will see, for example, there is the usual confidentiality clause that the party should not release the agreement because of the sensitive stage of the commercial discussions taking place. But we are moving in a transparent way, and from our perspective, we were disturbed by the continued distracting conversation of those in opposition who keep saying secret, secret, secret. So what's the best way to show this is not a secret? Here you are, look at it. And that is a consensual position because we know we're progressing with the commercial discussions.
Any consideration, or has any consideration been given to the impact of such a hotel, if it is that the hotel is actually built and so on other smaller hotel or guest house operators in Tobago, given the nature of what Sandals operations are in other parts of the Caribbean?
You just heard Mr. Stewart talk about the Grenada experience. The answer is yes from a governmental perspective. That has been considered. I'll leave Adam to give the substantive answer he wants to give. But you have to understand they're different models, they're different persons go for different things. So the small guest houses, this isn't going to affect the small guest house. Because if a person wants to go to a small guest house, that's what they're aiming for, that's what they're looking for. They're not looking, Sandals is on the high end of all-inclusive. So if you're going to a small guest house, I don't think it's going to take away from the small guest house by Sandals. But from our perspective, the increased airlift, the increased marketing and promotion of Tobago that Sandals does internationally. You're looking at BBC, you're looking at CNN, during the middle of those broadcasts on international television. Sandals ads come up. That is where Tobago will now be positioned. Adam constantly uses this phrase, the rising tide lifts all vessels. That is the simple principle from the government's perspective. We market Tobago with our Sandals. There's an increase in airlift. We work with that. More people that come, the guest houses and other establishments up their game, they will also get the increases, as has statistically happened in other jurisdictions, for example, Grenada.
Let me try and answer that in a logical way you can appreciate. So the first thing somebody does when they're choosing to go somewhere is they need to know where they want to go. So the first thing we have to do is plant a seed in the consumer's mind of a place called Tobago. Right now, there are very few people that are considering Tobago for obvious reasons. The marketing isn't there, the exposure isn't there, the brand presence isn't there. The travel trade superhighway, the people that book travel do not know destination Tobago. There is nobody that has had the success that Sandals has had on the training and the learning necessary on destination build out. Then in addition to that, you need to get here. So we can't come on banana boats and we can't take kayaks. We have to come on jet aircraft. So you have to have the relationship with airlines that fly to leisure destinations. And there's nobody that has had bigger impact in working with, the brands that JetBlue, Southwest, American Airlines, Virgin, British Airways. We're not a charter operator. Charter operators sell discount products, which leads right into your question, sir. And it's a great question because there is the Airbnb segment and that tide will rise with this. We are not, so what happened in other destinations? Jamaica fell prey to this, learned the lesson the hard way, and the Dominican Republic, most notably, where there's a thing called segmentation. So segmentation is the difference between a Courtyard Marriott and a Marriott Marquis and a JW Marriott and the Ritz-Carlton, all owned by Marriott, all on the same block, but all at different price points. So we are not the Courtyard Marriott. We are the Ritz-Carlton of all-inclusive. So we're up here. So we are not competing for the same customer. We're not in the space of charging $150 US a night. We're in the space of trying to get $850 to $1,200 a night. So what happens there is when they come and stay in our hotel, right? So we've planted the seed of Destination Tobago. We've built the airlift that we can get them here. And then when they come here, when they come to the destination, then you get the linkages and the workings between destination weddings taking place. Sandals has, we marry 10,000 people a year, couples, 10,000. That is 5 times bigger than the next biggest hotel chain. So we put these two people together. The average group size coming with these weddings is in excess of 40 people. Not every one of those 40 couples or friends can stay at Sandals. So where do they stay? At the guest houses, at a hotel down the beach that's maybe a little bit more affordable because they're not there for the honeymoon. They're there for the wedding ceremony and maybe a night or two. We don't specialize in 2 and 3 night vacations. We specialize in 7 to 14 night vacations. So it works interconnectivity with everything else. So you have to trust our experience when we say to you, if we were a different brand, if we were a lesser brand, and if we were coming in trying to compete with the guest houses, then we would be a threat to them. The other very important conversation that I can't speak on behalf of the government, but we have said to the government we would highly encourage, and the government has been quite receptive, is any beneficial incentive that is given to Sandals Resorts International for the maintenance and upkeep of our physical plant should be extended to every villa operator, every other hotelier, and every guest house operator so that people can continue to afford to reinvest in their product, to keep their product sophisticated that you can market it at an international level. Tobago wins with the and can grow. It has such an opportunity for the bed and breakfast small villa operator because that's so much of where the market is going today, where people want to explore these off the beaten path. But the truth is that there is a very strong place for a brand like Sandals and Beaches down here. Sandals being couples only, Beaches being family oriented, in that people look for these leisure products that are high end because they have limited time. More women are working today than ever before. People have less family time than ever before. So they want to go to a destination that they know is safe, and they want to be in a brand that they know has the reputation that when they get their 7-day holiday once a year with their family or their loved one, that they're not taking a chance on a destination having a poor experience.
One of the questions we missed in terms of, just for some clarification, I know the government had announced like Hyatt and Hilton's brand management type arrangements. So with the stage of negotiations now, yes, you have who owns the plant, the hotel, the property, who will be, in terms of Sandals running it, but that other aspect of who owns the property, that has been sorted out?
Absolutely. From the word go on, you'll actually see it was actually reflected in the MOU to some extent. The property is owned by the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We've set up a special purpose company that the physical land is owned by that special purpose company. We will then develop the construction of the plant, etc. will be done by the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and the payment for that will come from either the government of Trinidad and Tobago 100% or the government of Trinidad and Tobago along with any other equity investors.
The name of the company, sir?
It is the Golden Grove Buko Estate Limited or something like that. I can't remember. I think that is the correct name of the company.
Alina Dudnas from Loop News. I just have one quick question. I looked at the plan, not the counterfeit plan, the authentic plan.
Good.
Just a quick question. Is there any intent to remove any of the mangroves in that area?
Again, until we get back with the EIA, the environmental impact assessment, and we look at those things and sit down with Sandals and determine the exact footprint, I can't answer that with any certainty. But if we go with our full-scale dreams and intentions, yes, some of the mangrove will be affected. One of the discussions we've had with the environmental people, and there are internationally accepted ways of dealing with mangrove. For example, whatever you remove, you transplant and build or plant more mangrove in another area, etc., with certain proportions. We have had all of those discussions already. But again, at this stage, that's a bit of a premature conversation.
Karen Cruzio, Phillips, BT, following up on Lena's question, that area would also require some type of dredging work if you wish to put the huts on the water or something like that. What about the wildlife there?
Well,
also?
hold on. Why do you say it will require dredging work? I'll let Adam
Is it
explain.
not in the lagoon area?
Yeah, but it's not dredging. I mean, what you literally put down is you put some piles in, etc., and then you build on it over the water. It doesn't require any dredging. Dredging is when you need ships, etc., to come in. But I'll let Adam touch on it. But they've dealt with it.
We've built these in 3 different areas. In Jamaica, we are the only private sector company to actually work with the government of Jamaica and have a marine sanctuary, which we founded, where we take care, work with the local fishermen, talk to them about the fish productivity life cycle, the importance, marine production, the size of the chicken wire and the fish pots and nets. And this is kind of underground stuff. But in one of our developments that we did, we were able to prove, working with the local authorities, that over the water. So these are wooden piles being driven into the water, like a dock. All of the engineering services is put back under the dock to the mainland, has lock-offs. You don't have hurricanes here very often. We have them more often. They had to be built to Category 5. The one element that I would say very openly that we had to overcome was the shadow that the structure cast on the floor, the seabed below, and we replanted 3 times as many as we had of what we had to take out of the seagrass in other areas. If you come, and I would encourage anybody in this room to come to any one of these developments and come and look at what you're seeing. What you're seeing under there is a shade structure that is providing a safe haven for the fish life below. There, I mean, thousands of fish below these things. You can also electronically charge very, very lightly these structures, put in steel elements, and like similar to what the minister is saying, which we've done elsewhere, the reef balls, where the electronic charge advances the rate at which coral grows and create new reef ecosystems out of it. So the impact that there's a perception of how these things work, but the actual impact of them, the governments and the environmental authorities are starting to see more and more that these done correctly, this actually accelerates marine life as opposed to what you may think. But in our conceptual drawing, there's nothing in the lagoon. It was on the seaside. No, absolutely not. You choose an area that would be appropriate, and you simply drive a pile, a wooden pile or a concrete pile that goes down, and it's shaken into the ground, and that's it. If you were building a dock over the water, it would be the identical process, and then you have a substructure, you have the superstructure, and everything that we built on top are wooden structures.
Two quick points. One, as Adam just said, it is not being done on the lagoon side. So right now we're looking at doing it on the ocean side, and ocean studies have already been done of the wave actions and these types of things. And secondly, there is no waste going into the water. Everything is brought back underneath via pipes onto land for proper disposal, proper processing, etc. So the environmental impact is minimal, and is actually, the way they've utilized the technology, it is actually better, and you can create and recreate and reproduce the natural environment by utilizing the technology on these projects.
Good afternoon, Kim Woodram from The Express. Two questions, they are for anyone. Just to go back to the local produce that you will be buying, I know Sandals has a very high standard, or keeps a high standard menu. We've had some issues with our food basket being affected by floods, etc. I know there is a timeline, and what happens then depends on the work that is done between then and now. But, I mean, are you at all concerned about Trinidad not being able to supply your produce at, meeting your standard at that point in time?
That's a great question. So you'll notice in the MOU, when you get the MOU, that it speaks to the developer giving Sandals access to the hotel no less than 6 months in advance for training purposes. What we would be doing on the agricultural side, and when we met with the stakeholders in Tobago, there were over 60 stakeholders in attendance. We will actually publish publicly our consumption of what we need. We will give manufacturers the opportunity to come and tender and bid on our consumption needs. And we will start working with the farmers well in advance of a year in advance. So we will do a total assessment as we have done in other islands. Again, Grenada is one of the most recent. We're in the middle of doing it in Barbados today, of what is supplied readily. We'll work with the farmers. We'll have a team that, not just a purchasing team, but an agronomist and agricultural team that will work with them. So some things, in Jamaica is a great example because of our success. Things like microgreens, cherry tomatoes, some of the more specialized products, we couldn't get those 10 years ago. We started working with different farmers. Here are our consumptions, issued contracts to them. They were able to go to the banks. They were able to finance themselves today. As I said earlier, 98% of all of our agricultural products are bought locally. So, the old saying, Rome wasn't built in a day, but I think it comes down to the intention and how open and transparent we will be on what it is that we need. So our policy is buy local first. Now, if we cannot get it, we must always recognize that we are going to build something here that is going to be 5-star international standard. So we will be creating cuisines from all over the world, and but it's all opportunity, and you have a company that's willing to do the work that I've just spoken about and work with the farming community. Again, if you want to see some success, I know Cal flies to Jamaica regularly. Come up there and come and talk to some of the farmers. This year alone, we put 5 young farmers to work. Jamaica imports 20 million pounds of Irish potato. Irish potato is a stable crop. It can sit for a year in a warehouse. We should not be importing any of it. We have arable lands. So we started up a pioneering project with 5 young farmers, put them in business, imported the seeds, and now they're supplying Sandals Irish potato. So then after that, we're moving on to another crop. So it's about linkages and it's about connectivity, but I challenge anyone in this room to find a company that spends more time trying to make sure that the success and the trickle down is felt by everybody in the country. I challenge anybody in this room to come and try, show me a better company.
From a government perspective, exactly what Adam has said. The truth is we're not going to be able to supply all at the word go, but we are, one of the discussions taking place is getting them on the ground to assist the farmers. There is going to be a lot of opportunity. At the end of the day, it depends on who's going to take up that opportunity. Our first focus would be in Tobago and to get the agriculture going in Tobago. Then in Trinidad, the point is exactly as Adam has said, there's opportunity for persons to come and invest their time, their effort, their energy, because there is going to be a ready market for supply.
Also, Tobago frequently has water problems. Mrs. Stewart mentioned blue waters, and I know you would have been speaking with a lot of stakeholders as to what kind of business they could do. Can you advance anything at all on how you will be dealing with the water situation, unless I missed that?
Well, from the government perspective, it is something we are aware of. So one of the things we will look at is how to increase the water supply in Tobago, and in particular for this project, we may also look at, for this project in particular, desal plant for the project, but I assume you're talking about wider Tobago when it comes to agriculture. So it is one of the things that we're looking at.
Okay, my final question. Unfortunately, about crime, Tobago does not have the same problems we do, obviously. But are you at all worried about the shadow that Trinidad might cast on Tobago?
I'll ask the Minister of National Security to answer that question. You all would have seen in my recent visit to Tobago, one of the things I did was make sure to visit the fire, the police, the prisons, and even the some other facilities as well. The government has actually constructed a state-of-the-art police station right there on Shervan Road, which is literally going to be across the road from Sandals. When it is completed, it's certainly going to be the best police station I've seen in Trinidad and Tobago. We are focused on crime in general. We're going to do all that we can to protect the pristine environment of Tobago, and we're very conscious that if we're going to be asking international travelers to come to Tobago, that there are more measures that can be put in place, and we're already putting those in place. So, for example, one of the things when I did when I visited Tobago a couple of weeks ago was look at their CCTV camera system. We look at increasing the coverage of the CCTV camera system and working with more community policing, etc. So obviously we're looking, the answer is yes, we're looking at the issue of crime.
Follow up to Kim's question in terms of, as you're discussing, so water supply, but what about electricity supply? Given the size of a hotel like that and the demand for electricity?
I saw one of my colleagues flicking a switch a couple of weeks in Tobago. We have already begun to increase. There's now going to be an oversupply of electricity in Tobago. You would have seen in the Cove Electrical Estate, or whatever they call it, that we've put in a new turbine, or putting in new turbines, etc. Part of that was because we knew we were negotiating this whole deal with Sandals.
The company that you had spoken of.
Yes, I have the name here, and you all will get it in the MOU. It's Golden Grove Buco Limited.
Has it been established?
Oh yes, there's a board. Mr. Neil Wilson is the chairman of the board. It's a fully populated board. They've been in operation from the time we've incorporated it. In fact, I'd invited Mr. Wilson to be here today, but he couldn't make it. He had some other commitments, etc., and we're in constant contact and conversation with them. And that company now has the Buco estate, which the state purchased from Clico in its name as part of its asset base. It has a budget, it has staff, and these types of things, yes.
I do recall a few years ago when late Mr. Manning was Prime Minister, an event for a swap turning for what would have been the new terminal at the airport in Tobago. So this is not something that is a new issue. Did this administration give any sort of deadline as to when that would be actually constructed and in operation?
As I said, the RFP has gone out. It's an international RFP for basically a BOLT project, build, own, lease, transfer. The deadline for submissions of the proposals is February 2019. It's being handled predominantly by the Ministry of Finance, and in our weekly meetings, the Minister of Finance has said they're pushing full steam ahead.
One question for me, sir. Is Sandals receiving any incentives in terms of taxes or duties or any sort of waivers to operate in Tobago?
You'll see when you get the MOU that we will have conversation, but what we've been trying to emphasize, and I'll overemphasize it, the major types of incentives and exemptions will be coming to the shareholders of the project, which would be people of Trinidad and Tobago. But yes, Sandals are going to have staff here, they're going to have expatriate staff, because at the end of the day, they have a successful brand. They have to keep the brand at that level, so things like payment of income tax, etc., those are some parts of discussion. They also have great economies of scale with the importation of alcohol, etc. But ultimately, the benefits of those types of exemptions come to the profitability of the hotel, which will be owned by the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So we're still at the stage of hashing out those commercial type agreements. All right. Okay. Thank you very much, members of the media. Much appreciated. We will distribute some copies of the MOU